I'm a quarterback at the University of Nebraska. I came up to the University of Nebraska on a full-ride football scholarship, and that's what I've done for the last 5 years is play football. Life is like a roller coaster. There's going to be a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And that's what I want to tell you about. To achieve all the different things that you want to achieve in life, you're going to go through some rough spots. Perseverance is a key in my life, and I think is a key in everybody's life. The ability to overcome adversity is going to be very important in your life.
Well, there's a certain culture about Nebraska. People who work hard, have good values. Brook epitomized that spirit.
His character was really special. This guy had to live through 3 different scenarios, and many people would have just waffled, walked away from it. But he battled through it. That's why Brook Berringer may very well have been the most powerful, most influential player that's ever played in Nebraska.
Never lose hope, okay? You're gonna have these rough spots in your life. The important thing is those who are finishers. Anybody can be a starter. The people who finish are important.
For the chapter to be written in ink and you close the book, it seems unfair. You felt like in your heart of hearts, he had earned better.
Hunting has always been a part of my life.
Oh, this is great. It's a nice, cold, clear morning. Got some ducks flying already. Hopefully we're gonna get some decoy in and get some shooting here in a little while.
My dad started taking me hunting when I was, 3 or 4. When I was in kindergarten, my dad took me out of school for 3 days to go antelope hunting. And, it was a very important part of his life, and it was something that he wanted me to have the opportunity to enjoy as well. My dad died when I was 7 years old. All the memories that I have of my father were those of hunting and being in the outdoors. It's kind of a bond that my dad and I had when I was with him, and it's something that stayed in my heart.
Let's go. No, right here.
I think about him every day.
After his dad was gone, I knew how much Brook missed him. Even in junior high and high school football, he always had something that he did that was just marked because he knew his dad would be watching him.
One of my assignments in terms of recruiting was to recruit the Midwest. And lo and behold, a young man showed up on my radar screen named Brook Berringer. As I got introduced to the family, I realized that this was a precious situation. Anytime you lose a dad when you're young, that's a heavy impact on a young boy. And yet, this kid had some confidence. He had a little bit of a quiet swag to him. Played on a team out in Goodland, Kansas. The team was not a powerhouse football team, but we just kept hearing about this Berringer kid. Brook wasn't considered a heavily recruited quarterback, and we had another guy on campus, a guy that many people would remember named Cordell Stewart out of New Orleans, who's considered the best run-pass quarterback in America. A lot of people were wondering, oh, well, are we going to get Cordell? Brook was kind of an afterthought in the minds of many people, but I think Tom Osborne saw it differently. We knew that we had something special with Brook.
When he was leaving for college, I dreaded that day. He walked up and gave me a big bear hug, and he goes, "Mom, I'm gonna make you proud."
You don't even have to be a starting player here. You're a role model. No matter where you're on that depth chart, there's somebody in the state who's watching you.
Here's Frazier into the end zone. Touchdown. See something or what?
Tom
Tommy Frazier was the ultimate option quarterback. And we knew this guy was going to be the guy to take you to the promised land.
He had just a huge amount of confidence, especially for a kid just 1 year out of high school.
In the huddle, as a freshman, I tell him, listen, shut up. I'm running the play. I'm trying to do this, so be quiet. For a guy who hadn't necessarily proved himself to come in and really say that to some of those other guys, they're like, who is this jerk?
Get over it. You don't have to like me, but you're going to respect what I do. People call it cocky. People call it arrogant. I call it confidence.
Tommy was confident at a very early age. Brook's confidence had to grow. He won 3 games his senior year in high school.
Brook could run the option as good as some 6'4" guy from Kansas probably ever will. But compared to T. Frazier, that's a tough battle to win. I think that became evident to Brook very early in his career of, the only way I'm going to play is if this guy gets hurt.
When Tommy Frazier came to Nebraska, we had a couple guys that decided to transfer.
Brook's sophomore year, we sat in the driveway at a house we rented, him leaning up against his Mustang saying, I think I want out of here. He just felt like he was going to go through his college career without having a chance to really contribute. I remember telling him, man, you got to stick around. You never know when that opportunity is going to come when they're going to call your number.
Brook said, I'm going to persevere through this no matter what. I think he was intent on making that work.
And here comes Nebraska, ranked 4th in the nation.
They played in the Kickoff Classic at the Meadowlands to start the '94 season.
We couldn't wait for that game to happen. We felt that this team was ready to make that next step and be the best team in the country.
Frazier's got daylight. Hit 6.
Frazier just had a great game. And all of a sudden, you're talking about Heisman Trophy.
Frazier, option. Look out. He's gone.
They were on their way. Everything looked good at that point. But, of course, what happened after that would stack the odds against him following UCLA.
Something happened in that game. Just don't remember when. But I remember waking up the next morning and my leg was sore. Going through the next week, I'm practicing in, but I wasn't full speed.
We were running our normal 2-minute offensive work, and Tommy started to limp around. Against Pacific, we realized that there was something drastically wrong here. Brook had to enter in, and he performed very admirably. Threw 3 touchdown passes.
Experience, is the key, and I felt like going in after the first pass, after the first couple of plays, get some of the nervousness out, and I was fine after that.
I didn't play again the rest of that game, and then I remember going back home, and the next morning, I couldn't walk. And so that's when they called Coach Osborne and then took me to the hospital and did an ultrasound. That's when they found out I had a blood clot in my leg. Blood clots is a deadly illness to have. And he said, but what we could do, we could put you on anticoagulants, see how that goes. If it dissolves and it stays away, you can play. But we're gonna need 2 weeks to make sure it dissolves.
How you feeling, Tommy?
Good.
What's the doctor's report?
I feel like talking right now.
When are you gonna play?
The doctor told me that he would have a hard time dissolving it, and if he couldn't dissolve it, then he might not play again.
Everyone had been hailing Tommy Frazier, and here's Brook Berringer. People had their doubts about him. I mean, how in the world could he ever lead Nebraska to a national title?
I can remember him coming into my office, and we talked about the situation. We have confidence in you. We're going to do things that's going to make you successful. He said, Coach, you don't have to worry about that. I will be ready.
I've been waiting for this for a long time, and I'm excited about it. I'm anxious for Saturday. I'm just going to go out Saturday and try to play up to my potential and get the offense moving and score some touchdowns.
Here we have Brook Berringer, and he's saying to himself, hey, it's my time to shine. And throughout the game, Wyoming is just not going away.
Finds an open receiver, touchdown. Jeremy Gilstrap, the big tight end, and the Cowboys are up by 2 touchdowns. There's 75,000 fans wondering what's going on. Are we in the right stadium?
Brook came into his own when he engineered a 2-minute drive right before the half, and he got hurt.
Berringer will carry the football himself. He is in for the score.
Brook took a shot down towards the goal line, and he looked at me, and he made this wheezing, kind of sound.
I was looking at his eyes, and his eyes were just huge.
I can hear Coach saying, "Are you okay?" And he was serious, "Are you okay?" And Brook's like, and he's telling him, "Yeah." And there was no way. And it was kind of that look of, "No, I'm not scared. I'm telling you, you don't take me out of this game."
And he said, the only way you're going to take me out of this game is you got to take me off on a stretcher. If I'm laying out on the football field, that's the only way you're going to carry me out of this game.
Word started to get around that, man, Brook collapsed his lung. He collapsed his lung. He collapsed his lung on that play. He got hit. That man went through the game with a collapsed lung.
And he will score. And, man, it was the Berringer show this time around from the offensive side of the football. First down and 10 for Nebraska. Berringer rolls out, finds a lane, cuts it up, touchdown. And that will end the ball game.
That game defined Brook Berringer for the whole state of Nebraska.
He played hurt. He led hurt. He led a comeback. He embodied all the things that you write the great stories about for quarterbacks in Nebraska folklore history.
And that's when we said we could follow him.
Brook leaves the field without doing interviews. It's like, well, he's in the hospital. We find out that he had a collapsed lung.
They put a needle in there and inflated the lung like you would a basketball.
He told us by Monday, oh, I'm going to play, no problem.
I'm not concerned about taking more hits. I think if the doctors clear me and we get everything protected, I'll be fine.
The next week, we play Okie State.
Brook played well, but he took another pretty hard hit to the back and deflated that lung again. At that point, the doctor said, well, this is getting pretty serious. If he has another injury, we won't be able to inflate it again. We're going to have to hold him out for the rest of the season.
Now we're all just like, what's going to happen? Because the next quarterback in line is Matt Turman, who's a walk-on.
They called him the Terminator, and he had to step in against Kansas State.
Those guys were feeling very confident about beating us now. There's no way you're going to come down to Manhattan, Kansas and beat us with your third-string walk-on quarterback.
Touchdown, Mitch running.
Winning at halftime, and Brook over there, Coach, put me in. And the doctors, Tom Osborne and myself, getting together and getting approval from the physician to say, is he able to play? He's able to play.
And it will be Berringer who will start at quarterback here in the second half.
Pretty tight game. We said, okay, you can play, just don't get hit.
We were all sitting here thinking, I don't know if this is the best idea. I mean, the guy's still got healing rib fractures. He's punctured his lung twice now. And I remember Brook just taking the ball, hitting the corner, and getting about a 5 to 7 yard gain on the play for no reason other than the fact he could outrun the K-State defense. And all of a sudden, again, you just kind of realize, you know, here's a guy who he knows he has these injuries. And he's taking the ball, he's putting it in his own hands. And if I got to do it myself, I'm going to do it. And he did it.
Nebraska remains unbeaten. They may have an opportunity to be ranked as the #1 team in the country.
Nebraska it's a farm state, hardworking. People have dirt under their fingernails. They're honest as the day is long, and they love their football.
Brook was widely admired by people in this state because they saw his character.
Brook was one of those guys that just kind of snuck up on you. He put his head down and worked and got better and worked and got better.
You think about the things that people from Nebraska respect. If people go out and they work hard and they're doing things that kind of echo a lot of those values that the people in this state have, that ends up being almost more of a bottom line than the winning does.
Hello, everybody. Keith Jackson. Today, the Cornhuskers will have their 200th consecutive home sellout. It's a string that goes all the way back to 1962. That's a long time. Today, the unbeaten Colorado Buffaloes take on the undefeated Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Colorado had Cordell Stewart. He had the miracle at Michigan earlier in the season.
The ball's up in the air. Caught. Touchdown. Incredible.
I do remember us just being so offended by them saying that they're destined to win the national championship that year because that miracle in Michigan. But we're thinking, you have to come through Lincoln.
There's no doubt Brook was as hyped up for that game as I'd ever seen him any time that I'd known him.
There haven't been many people that give me a chance all season, and I don't know what it's going to take. You know, I suppose winning a national championship is the only way to do it, so I guess that's what we'll have to do.
Tell me about Brook's confidence in this ball game.
Oh, Brook is a little cloud nine with his confidence. He's ready to go out and play.
On the sideline that day, I just remembered, yeah, this is familiar. Cordell and Brook in the same proximity. The known commodity versus the unknown.
Berringer straight back and has some time. Goes underneath with it. The ball is caught for the tight end. It's a big play.
The Colorado game was the thing that changed everything. They came into Lincoln and just got demoralized. And it was on both sides of the ball. I mean, that game was never close.
Berringer's over the middle. Pass is caught by Alford. And a big play.
This is an amazing thing. This young kid at quarterback for us, playing with such poise. I mean, a forgotten guy that had risen out of the ashes to national prominence. And we're on this national championship run.
Right for a pass, headed wide open, Alford, touchdown.
Brook felt like he was unbeatable.
The Nebraska Cornhuskers remain undefeated.
Brook was almost flawless. And at that point, you knew that Brook wasn't a second-teamer. He was a big-time player. He could win for anybody.
That's all I've really been saying for the last couple of weeks is that, you know, I'm a good player and I'm going to get it done. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it done. The team is not going to have to sacrifice because of me.
Every time we took the field, as Brook got better and things were clicking, it made it tougher to say, how do you pull him out and put 15 back in?
It is tough because one day you're a marquee player and center of attention, and then an injury hits, and not your fault, and all of a sudden you're the forgotten man.
I think down deep, Tommy knew that he was just hoping to make it back in some form or fashion and, you know, to be as successful as we could.
Brook Berringer was undefeated going into the last ball game.
Our final regular season game was against Oklahoma, down in Norman, Oklahoma. Tommy Frazier suited up for that game. He was given a 5% chance of playing.
Here's a look at Tommy Frazier. They said if it was up to Tommy, obviously, he'd be in the ball game.
We weren't really planning on playing Tommy. It was going to be in Brook's hands.
You got to think that Berringer was looking over his shoulder a little bit because he had contended so much with the Tommy Frazier thing. It was always shadowing him. And he wanted that job. Not that he wished ill on Tommy. Never, ever did Brook wish ill on Tommy so he would gain from it. Never. But you have your starting quarterback, Tommy Frazier, now suited up. You're thinking, I better perform.
Berringer keeps it himself. Touchdown, Huskers.
We won 13-3. It was a hard-fought game. And we all breathed a sigh of relief because we knew now we were going to be playing for the national championship.
And the 75th edition of Oklahoma against Nebraska is in the books, folks.
When we found out that we were going to be playing Miami for the national championship game, we recognized that Tommy Frazier was given a clean bill of health to play in the national title game. So now the question is, well, who's the starting quarterback?
I expect to be the starter. I think it'd be kind of a tough situation to try to mess with the chemistry of the team we got going right now. So I would expect to be the starter, and I think Tommy will be ready in an emergency situation.
If you're a starter and you go down with an injury, when you come back as a starter. But it wasn't that simple.
Brook won every single football game as a starter. He led the team to undefeated season.
There were guys on the team who felt Brook should be the starting quarterback for that ball game.
Here's a guy, chemistry is great with the team. It's coming in, we won 7 in a row. Do you want to disrupt that chemistry?
The counterpoint to that would be, hey, this was our guy. This is Tommy Frazier. He's our leader. We've seen him in crunch time. We've seen him perform on big stages. I know he finds a way to get it done.
I'm not here to start any quarterback controversy before a national championship game, because that's not what it's all about. It's all about my team against their team, and we're going out there playing national championship and hoping that we win.
I think either one of us could step in and win the game. That's all I'm concerned about.
Rather than trying to weigh it all out in his mind, Coach Osborne said, we're going to put it on paper. We're going to have scrimmages down here.
We'll grade everything that you guys do, and whoever has the best grade, that's the way it's going to be.
I went over a scenario with Tommy. We're going to say that Brook's going to be the starter. Tell me what you're feeling right now by me just stating that. Shaking his head like that. That ain't happening, Coach. That ain't happening. That ain't happening.
I remember after one particular scrimmage that Tommy really played well, and I thought he outplayed Brook. I could sense that Tom was ready to go in that direction.
2 days before the bowl game, Coach Osborne walked in and said, you know, we graded all the scrimmages. Tommy, you're going to start because you graded out higher. But Brook is going to play the second quarter. And then after the second quarter, who's ever leading the team the best is the one who's going to finish the game.
There was a lot of us on the team that our heart broke for Brook that he didn't start, knowing that he was the one who had gotten us that far.
There's a lot of guys that go through their whole career in college football and never get to this point. We've done it 2 years in a row now. Let's make it count this time. There's nothing should be left on that football field. We came close last year. It's a culmination of a whole year of work right here.
We're moments away from the start of the 61st Orange Bowl, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Their coach, Tom Osborne, only a national title missing from his resume.
Miami truly had to be one of the greatest defenses that college football's seen in a while. You had Warren Sapp up front. You had the best Mike linebacker in the nation in sophomore Ray Lewis.
Two of the most talkative players, they're not holding their tongues at all.
Frazier lofts it downfield. Muhammad double covered. Interception made by Carlos Jones of Miami.
Was I playing my best? No. Was I a little rusty? Yeah, I hadn't played in 8 weeks. Of course I'm going to be a little rusty.
Screen play left side, complete inside the 35, inside the 30, 25, 20, 15, a touchdown.
We were struggling, and the momentum was gradually moving in their direction.
After that pick, we just talked about it and said, I think this is an opportunity here to give us a little bit of a boost. Brook Berringer can handle this.
It looks like the Huskers are going to the pin. Berringer will be on the next time they have the ball.
Brook came in and just started to pick them apart.
First down, Nebraska. Ball spotted at the 19 of the Canes. Play action. Berringer rolls, flips, caught, touchdown. Gilman.
Brook did a great job of leading us down the field scoring. And if you notice after halftime, who stayed in the game?
Who's your quarterback in the second half?
Brook Berringer will start.
Thank you, Coach. Good luck.
Coach Osborne handled it probably the best that he could. He stayed true to both players, that whoever's leading the team the best is the one who's going to finish play the second half, and Brook did.
So first and goal, Cornhuskers at the 4. Berringer still has it after the play action. For the end zone, dangerous. Was it intercepted? Yes! Brook Berringer, last possession, threw the costly interception in the end zone, and he's on the sideline as the Cornhuskers take over once again. The starter, Tommy Frazier, who was ineffective, is back on the field.
This is turning into a movie.
Frazier goes in to the huddle. He says, we're going to score right now.
Schlesinger. Touchdown. And the Cornhuskers will go for 2. Frazier will throw. It's good. 2-point conversion. Game tied at 17. And redemption for Tommy Frazier. And a smile for Brook Berringer.
Tommy would look at different guys in their eyes. He'd tug on their face mask. And his last words before he got the next series were, we're going to find a way to get this done.
See ya. Schlesinger has another touchdown.
Nebraska will win the national championship. The Cornhuskers beat Miami 24-17 and win the national title.
If we had just Tommy Frazier in that game, I don't know if we beat Miami. If we had just Brook Berringer in that game, I don't know if we beat Miami. We don't win that game unless we've got both of those guys on the field.
What about winning this for Coach Osborne?
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, we wanted to win it so bad for him, not only ourselves, but for him because, he's been so close and we just felt like he deserved it so much.
I didn't care who was going to be the quarterback, honestly, in that game. Going into the next season, I think, was a little different story.
Everybody loved the quarterback battle. We had tremendous storylines, but all anybody could talk about was Tommy versus Brook.
Flying was a passion of Brook's.
Brook loved to fly as much as he loved to hunt and fish and play football.
There was a bond that he had with his dad. And even though his dad had been deceased for a number of years now, one of those carryovers from his dad was flying. He loved to fly.
Brook's dad's identical twin brother encouraged him to find somebody that would be a mentor, somebody that would have access to a plane.
Harry Barr started a humongous aviation company, Duncan Aviation.
Duncan Aviation shared with us that we've had a number of students that have come here, gotten their flying license while they were in school. Brook thought, that's not a bad deal. He could set aside some hours to come and get his pilot's license.
Harry was almost like a grandfather type role. It was absolutely carte blanche. Anytime you need anything, just ask. I don't know too many people that would just say to a college kid, you can fly anytime you want. Because Brook, you know, if we had well, it's a beautiful night tonight, let's go. And we just run out there and jump in the plane, push it out onto the little grass strip. You know, he'd get me in, tell me not to touch anything, and zoom, off we'd go.
He invited me several times to go out and fly with him, and he was a very good pilot, but he'd want to do a few things that I necessarily didn't want to do. Like he liked to go up and do stalls. He liked to go call upon the Lincoln Municipal Airport and ask if he could do touch and goes on their mile-long runways, and they were like, no. And the next thing you know, he's saying, we'd really like to do touch and goes on runway 18, whatever. And inevitably, here we are 5 minutes later, and we're flying in a little go-kart with wings bouncing on the runway at Lincoln, doing touch and goes, and he loved it.
I want to thank this team and this coach, not only for winning the national championship, that's obviously a great honor, but for the way that it was won and the character and teamwork and spirit that Coach Osborne has always displayed and that this team displayed.
We were all under the microscope, and for the right reason. We just beat Miami Hurricanes, win the national championship. We had a lot of people coming back, a lot of talent. Tommy Frazier, Brook Berringer, Lawrence Phillips. We were the show.
Okay, let's go.
The quarterback situation was open going into the spring. There were people talking about that on the radio shows and the letters to the editor.
It's really my first legitimate chance at becoming a starting quarterback out of spring, and I'm excited about it. It's something I've worked hard for and I feel like I deserve. So Tom and I are going to go out there and compete as hard as we can and see what happens.
No, I'm not going to get caught up into this battle between me and Brook for the star position. If it's my best is not good enough for the impress the coach, then I just have to live with it.
Coach Osborne did not want to have a two-platoon system the entire year. I think he wanted to settle in on a quarterback.
We told him again, we said, we're just going to try to be as fair as we can, and we're going to grade every practice.
I don't think it was real lovey-dovey, to be honest with you, because they both were extremely competitive.
SI's John Ed Bradley getting Tommy to say some things he hasn't said before. There is indeed plenty of pent-up frustration within the rising senior. The article entitled, Looking for Respect. Tommy Frazier, talking about his relationship with Berringer, says, everyone on the team knows we don't get along. We might have an altercation every now and then, say words to each other in the locker room. I've told Berringer just what I've told others. It's my job, and the only way you'll take it is if I lose it.
Were we best friends off the field? No. I wasn't friends with anybody. There's a lot of guys I didn't even talk to. We were from different parts. The only thing we really had in common was he played quarterback at the University of Nebraska. On every team, there are some quarterbacks that a group of guys don't like over the other.
Those offensive linemen, they'll tell you, they loved Brook. He was more like them than Tommy was, you know, in terms of culture and probably interest in those kinds of things.
There was the whole black-white issue. There's definitely that dynamic. For Brook, he was as close with those offensive linemen as anybody on the planet. Then you had skilled guys that were receivers that wanted the ball, that felt like Brook could get it to them better, but then didn't want to feel like they were selling out Tommy because Tommy was their guy. It was tough.
That kind of split the team up a little bit, and a lot of people won't say that, but it did. For the first couple weeks in practice, it was rough because you saw guys doing things they normally didn't do because they had a liking to one guy over the other.
A week before our opener against Oklahoma State, Coach Osborne was going to announce his starter.
It wasn't that I outplayed Brook. It wasn't that I did something special. It's I had less turnovers. And the Coach Osborne, if you have a turnover, that's worse than making a bad call. And that's why I got the nod.
I just stared at Brook. I wanted to see facial expression. I wanted to know what was going to go on in his heart. He didn't move a muscle, but I could see it in his eyes. I could see the disappointment in his eyes.
He got the announcement on the day that was his dad's birthday, and that was a tough day for him anyway. He was brokenhearted.
Brook came into my house and we talked about it all, and very distraught, very disappointed, hurt.
There has to come a point where you've been unselfish for 20 years, you've done the right thing just once, you'd like for somebody to go to bat for you.
I gave him some hope, even though you may not play X amount of plays. I said, just because of your style, just because of your ability, you're suited for the NFL. And I said, keep that in your mind to keep moving forward.
It takes a lot of character, I think, to go through some of the things that I've gone through, and you know, because it can be very frustrating, you know, sitting on the sideline when you've been there in that starting role and you're watching somebody else out there.
He could have been a guy who barked in the locker room and created mutiny. He could have split our team down in a variety of different ways, but he wouldn't go there. He stayed positive.
Brook played his role as the backup quarterback for Tommy, but that wasn't the biggest problem that ended up being the issue with that team.
The snap goes to Phillips. They got all kinds of tricks. And these tricks aren't for kids because Phillips is going to score.
They go play at Michigan State. Nebraska wins that game. They come back. Lawrence Phillips, he got angry at a former girlfriend, climbed up the outside of a building, goes in and assaults her physically, drags her downstairs.
You also had some other issues. I mean, you had Christian Peter, who had a sexual assault charge against him. Tyrone Williams, a cornerback, was accused of shooting into a car in downtown Lincoln. Riley Washington, a receiver, was charged with second-degree attempted murder. The national media was all over Osborne.
It was very difficult when you're proud of a team to see a lot of negative publicity coming in around you and embarrassing the school in some ways.
In '95, we were kind of the bad boys. And in the midst of all of that, there was this incredible story that was taking place. Beneath the rocks and all the rubble, there's this Brook Berringer guy who's not playing like he did in '94, and yet his character is shining.
I saw a real change in him after the season started. It was like his focus was less on the performance of football and more on the performance of being a role model.
I think it's important for us as athletes and role models, especially in Nebraska, around Omaha and Lincoln, to get out and visit with people and give them a chance to meet us and get some autographs. And I think it's important, so I try to do as much of it as I can.
The fact that he gave his life to Christ, started doing more community activities, that's where I felt like he found his peace, and that got him through.
You really stay focused and cooperate, and you really have to, you know, teamwork is the most important concept that you can have.
It was just fun to meet him, and it was just great to meet him, too.
Brook Berringer was light years ahead of what we're teaching today's college and professional athlete. He certainly built a great brand for himself, but he did that just by being himself. People rooted for Brook Berringer. He wasn't overly flashy. People just appreciated him. They felt like they knew him because Brook was very open. He told his story, and his story was one that the people could identify with. I remember stopping at a rest stop and every single boy or girl wanting to come up to Brook and get him to sign their t-shirt and get a picture with him. Brook took his time with each of those little boys and girls. He didn't have to do that for every single kid, but that's what he always did. You know, he always made people feel special.
And I spend a lot of time with my dogs out hunting, and I'm also a private pilot, and I've been flying airplanes for about 6 or 7 years. Hopefully we'll get a chance to visit with some of you and find out what you guys like to do.
Brook never accepted not being the starting quarterback. He had said from day one that if you're not trying to be the starting quarterback, what's the point? He was still competing every day for the job, but it was clear that Frazier was going to be the guy.
When Tommy Frazier comes back for the 95 season and has one of the great seasons that a quarterback's ever had, is the runner-up for the Heisman Trophy. Brook hardly plays at all and drifts into obscurity.
Tommy on the keep, turns the corner, 25-30, eludes a tackler, 35. Tommy Frazier, 37, 38, 39, 40, 45, 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He's gonna go! Holy cow! Touchdown, Tommy Frazier! 25 straight wins for the Cornhuskers. A second straight national championship. One of the most dominating stretches in college football history.
Brook had scored late in the game, but it was kind of anticlimactic for him. After the game, the opposing quarterback came over to me, Danny Wolfo. He said, Coach Brown, I know you pray with the players after the game, but could I pray? And there was Danny Wolfo. On one side of me, there was myself, and lo and behold, Brook Berringer. The two most disappointed people in that stadium that night had to be those two quarterbacks for different reasons. One was on the losing team, had a tough night, but the other one was on the winning team, but had a really tough season.
The fact that he didn't play in 95, that still didn't diminish the talk that he could be an NFL quarterback. And I know the Denver Broncos were interested in him. He was preparing that spring as if he was going to be drafted.
There's no doubt he was excited about the opportunity to go play in the NFL. In his mind, he was ready for that challenge.
I was so excited, just euphoric. And I was planning a draft party.
It was a beautiful spring day. Seasonably warm. Strong north wind.
We're in the middle of my bean field. I saw the airplane and watched it flying up as best as it could. They got up maybe 125 feet off the ground. All of a sudden, I seen the wing shutter on the airplane. All they did was wiggle. I could tell that he'd lost lift on the airplane.
It was 2:30 in the afternoon when the call came in.
It looked like he tried to sit it down in that little field, but it didn't work that way. It's pretty obvious. There's no way they would have survived. There was 2 victims in a plane.
It was a hell of a mess. And nobody knew who it was at the time.
The university called the house and asked if Brook was there, and I said, no, he's not. And he didn't let it go. He kind of sat there quiet, and I said, what's going on? And he said, well, there was an accident north of town. We just wanted to make sure it wasn't Brook. And I was like, okay, well, no, I'm positive it wasn't. I'll have him call you, when he gets back. And then he paused again, and he said, well, there was a plane, and the accident was up by Raymond. I got kind of nervous then because I had flown in that plane with him quite a few times. I went over to our front door. A sheriff that I knew was standing in the door, silhouetted. And I knew the second that I opened that door that something really bad had happened. And I just looked at him and shook my head, and I said, is there a maroon Toyota pickup truck parked out there? And he called on his radio on his shoulder. And he looked at me and nodded, and I said, man, it's them.
As soon as word got out that it was Brook Berringer in this aircraft, while the coaching staff came to the scene,
we were hoping that somehow that he walked away, and then what you saw was just a little pile of rubble, you know, and realized that nobody could have survived. And so I realized I needed to call Jan, and that was probably the hardest phone call I've ever made.
He said he's on the way to a scene of an accident. And I said, hunting? He said, no, it's an airplane. And oh, my heart just hit my big toe.
Brook and I were both going to go talk at an FCA banquet that evening with Coach Osborne. And, you know, they told us right there that Brook had been killed.
Are you serious? I mean, you know, I couldn't even accept it initially.
It was more disbelief than anything. Because here, I just saw the guy an hour before it happened.
I remember vividly, Lord, please don't let this be true.
I'm here outside Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, where the city and the entire state just can't believe it's true. Brook Berringer and the brother of his girlfriend, Toby Lake, dead in a plane crash.
The lights that we have here this evening are just a symbol that he will live in the hearts of all of us forever.
It's such a big loss when you have something where someone's got so much ahead of them, to have it end like that.
My little brother, he's 6 years old. Just adored Brook. And when I told him that Brook died, he just looked at me and said, Brook Berringer? You know, I couldn't believe it.
48,000 fans bowed their heads for a moment of silence. They paid last respects to number 18, Nebraska football hero, Brook Berringer.
At this time, I would ask you to focus on a tragic event this week that deeply affected all of us in the National Football League and in sports generally. The death of Brook Berringer, the University of Nebraska quarterback who lost his life this week in an airplane accident. I would ask you to join us in a moment of silence.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch.
I love Brook, loved the type of person he was, and I can honestly say that there was nobody that I coached who had better character than Brook Berringer.
I have a friend who told me that while growing up, she always saw a picture of Jesus standing by a tree talking to children. She said that every time someone she knew died, she would always believe that that person would get to go and sit by that tree and talk to Jesus. That is how I picture you now, Brook. I picture you sitting by one of the trees with your dad, along with Toby and his dad, and you were talking with Jesus. I picture you smiling and looking happier than I've ever seen you before. You must feel such joy now, looking down and seeing how many people you have touched. I love you, Brook. I will miss you until the time we will meet again. Save a place for me by that tree. I will be there someday.
Dear Mrs. Berringer, I and my mother, Dorothy, are deeply saddened by the loss of your son, Brook. I wasn't fortunate enough to meet him, but I know his character stood head and shoulders. Dear Mrs. Berringer, we met Brook in June 1995 when he was the guest speaker for a Leadership Academy school my son Michael attended at his local grade school. Michael was so thrilled to be picked by the class to get the opportunity to introduce Brook. We arrived early, and Brook was already there shaking hands, taking pictures with the students. You would most enjoy hearing about how he affected young kids, like my 8.5-year-old son, Brandon. On Saturday, we went to the annual spring game. They had a very moving tribute to Brook prior to the game. Brandon watched intently as the adults around him, including his dad, got misty-eyed. After a couple of minutes, he spoke. "Dad, some things about life don't make any sense to me." I told him I understood, that I sometimes felt the same way when tragedy occurs. He was quiet for a few more minutes, and then Brandon turned and said, "I think whenever I play sports, I want to wear number 18.
Grew up my whole life outside of Des Moines, Iowa. Really, any football memory that I have growing up is all Nebraska football. It was 7th grade. They had all the jerseys lined up in the gym. It came down to 15 or 18. Am I going to go Tommy Frazier? Am I going to go Brook Berringer? Decided to wear 18 in honor of Brook. I think the thing he taught me is the team's always the most important aspect of it all.
Brook taught me a lot about giving back because that wasn't part of my makeup. But watching him, the things that he did, and then years after that saying, "Hey, you know what? I got to be a better person. I got to give back more." I owe that to Brook.
Brook Berringer, his whole life, everything he did is a cliche to a lot of people. Nobody's that good. Nobody behaves that well. He did.
The death of a great person should add life to those he leaves behind.
The guy has a statue in front of the stadium. That tells you right there who he was.
He's the perfect person to be on that statue of Coach Osborne. It wasn't always about winning football games. It was about giving back to people.
I'm Alex Nasseri, and Brook's my uncle. Brook lives on through Nebraska fans and it's passed down to me. It's really been an inspiration for me. I get to kind of carry on his legacy. The 1994 National Championship team will be leading the current Nebraska football team out of the tunnel and onto the field. I will walk with them wearing a number 18 jersey representing Brook. It's every high school boy's dream to walk out of the tunnel onto a college football field, and I have the opportunity to spend a day in Brook's shoes.
I came up from Goodland, Kansas. I turned 18 today. I'm college bound for Lincoln. Nebraska's where I'll stay. It's been my dream all my life to play football on this field. And if I ever get the chance, I'll make you this deal. Well, I'll work hard, I'll do my part. You won't hear me complain. I'll never go down easy. I swear I'll pull my weight. Hey there, Mr. Osborne, I'll do anything to play. And it sure would be an honor, sir, to call you coach someday. I came up from Goodland, Kansas, turned 18 today. I'm college bound for Lincoln, Nebraska's where I'll stay.